Hi, everyone. Welcome to Soul Creativity. Thanks for joining. I want to thank all my subscribers and also encourage anyone who tunes into the channel to please subscribe and like the videos. And the live chat is up. So, any comments or questions this evening or wherever you're at, whatever time of the day it is, we welcome your comments and questions. And I'm so pleased today to be welcoming Claudette Dean with me. Claudette is an artist and also quite an inspirationalist. And I think that we're all going to really enjoy our conversation. And below the video, you'll see contact information for me and for Claudette. There'll be a link to her website where you can check out all the things she has to offer. So, welcome, Claudette, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Naven. Thank you for inviting me.
We were just talking before we started that it's 11:11, so there's probably a lot of good energy flowing,
quite an energy
flowing here, and a lot of possibilities circulating.
Definitely.
On 11:11.
Definitely.
Claudette, if anyone checks your website out, and you and I have talked about this before, is you talk about the golden thread of connection. And I was wondering if you could, give us a little idea of what you mean by that and what it means to you and in your life.
Yep. It's something actually that's when I redid my website recently, I changed the tagline to following the golden thread of connection, because at the time I was making new connections and it was opening me up to shows like this. And actually, it's through that connection at that time that I've met you. And so I just thought everything is still evolving, everything is still moving, everything is still changing. So instead of labeling myself as a visual artist, an author, I think I'm just a creative that is following that golden thread of connection. And it's kind of like a flower that's unfurling, and I'm continuing to unfurl. But if I had to, I'm not an expert on what it is, but if I had to say something about it, I would say that the golden thread of connection provides the most direct pathway to achieving your greatest potential as a spiritual being having a physical experience. I think that most people might know the phrase going with the flow a little better than the golden thread of connection, but it's really the same thing. And that when we're in the flow, when we're in the universal flow, we move forward. When we're going against the flow, we're usually held back. And so that's really it in a nutshell.
That's very well said. And I was thinking as you started talking about the universal flow and how when we're connected to that, I think it leads us, to our soul purpose, if you want to state it that way. And it also leads to our creativity. And you were talking about, you think of yourself as a creative, and that's how I would label, if I used a label, which I don't particularly like, but, how I think of myself. And so, along with your golden thread of connection and it being in flow with that energy and your own inner wisdom combined with what the universe has to offer, what type of creative endeavors do you have? Do you participate in?
Well, the golden thread of connection led me directly to, I think, my purpose, which is being creative. And it started off at a time in my life where I may have been, I guess I was in the flow, but it was leading me more towards what I was meant to be. And at that time in my life, I got a nudge to start being creative, which I hadn't really done at all. I have a degree in French literature, but as far as painting, etc., I never really thought that would be something I would do, but I got this strange nudge, and it came at a time in my life where everything was up in the air and mixed up. And so I started small. I started. I think it was painting on T-shirts, and then I went to an opening of a building. I met an artist, a local artist there, who said he gave private lessons. So I took a few private lessons, and it just ignited the fire. And I just continued from there. I met a friend who knew another friend who organized an art show, and on it went. And it developed into a 20-year career as a visual artist with, good success. I've sold a lot of paintings. I have a piece in the National Art Collection of the Bahamas. I received an award from the Commonwealth of Bahamas in the area of fine arts. And so, I've had one-woman shows. I've shown internationally. So it really blossomed and developed into a pretty nice career for me, you know. And then things switched again, and I felt I needed to be doing something else. I joined a writers club, so I started. Well, before that, actually, one of my, I think it was my third one-woman show. I was prompted to write some poetry to go with the work, and so I had never really done that before. So I wrote some spiritual poetries, they were really love songs or love poems to the divine. And then so that the writing thing kicked in. I did a visual presentation, a performance art video where I wrote and performed. And then after writing and joining the Writers Club, one of the prompts led me to really write a whole novel. So I published a novel called Smelling Roses. That was about 3 years ago. Yeah. And now I'm back in my studio painting.
Well, that's a good place to be. I'm familiar with your poetry and your paintings, and of course, they're both beautiful. And when you look at that art, I mean, you can feel a real spiritual connection, and the art itself is, inspiring. And you can tell that, you can tell how it was.
The place it came from.
Yeah, that it came through you. So that's really nice. We do have a comment that I want to read to you, Claudette, and it's from Chantel Bethel. And it says, "Thank you for explaining the golden thread. I always do it, but did not realize it was the golden thread." So
that is so Chantel. She's a very good friend and a fellow artist, a great artist, in fact. And yeah, so yeah,
okay.
That's often the case. We do things intuitively. We don't really know what they are, and then and we discover, oh, that's what that was. And it happens with painting all the time as well. And it's a discovery. It's a journey of discovery, creativity. And it's not so much doing; it's more receiving and allowing. When that creativity, it's your place of connecting to source at its best, and so it's so important, I mean.
Yeah, and I think if you keep, if you build that trust, in other words, saying yes to the universe or to what comes your way is not a one-time event.
Oh, no.
It's a way of life, and it can help you build a map, I think, in how you lead your life. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about the trust that comes the more you do it, and how the flow will then increase. And also, I think it's important that you're saying yes to what resonates with you, that you somehow feel, you can say you feel it in your gut, or, maybe someone else would describe it differently. But it also keeps you, you learn to discern. You learn when it's not right for you. And I think that's where that trust comes in. And also by saying yes and building that relationship with the universal flow. And I just wonder if you have anything to add to that.
Oh, for sure. It's like anything else. The more you use it and the more you see a result, the more comfortable you are with it, the more you trust it, and it increases. That's definitely the way it works. And there's no doubt in my mind anymore.
Hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that I always make the right decision, because we are still human beings,
Right.
and the mind sometimes gets in the way of hearing the heart, because I think the mind has this, it comes from this place of memory, of experience, of genetics, and kind of programs us to make decisions in a certain way, uh,
Hmm.
based on past events. But if we can come to a situation fresh and look at it from with new eyes, then we can really tune into the heart. That's why it's important to be quiet, to not act when
Hmm.
you're emotional. You know, get quiet and listen and see it anew, and that's when you can really tap into that flow. Hmm.
Right. You're making me think of the busyness of our days and all the noise that surrounds us, and we're not really, often in a traditional type of setting. You're not really encouraged to
Hmm.
kind of just sit and do
No,
nothing, or sit and get, tap into your own inner knowing.
no,
Uh,
no.
Even to judge how you're feeling, sometimes you don't have time
This is
to do
true.
that.
This is true.
So it's really important to take that time to develop some kind of practice where, whether it's walking in nature or being out in nature, or if you're meditation or dancing or whatever it is for you,
Hmm.
to build that on a regular basis,
Oh,
to
yeah.
keep building that relationship.
As they say, that brings you back into alignment.
Hmm.
I think the trick is with busyness and life. I mean, not everyone has the luxury of painting all day or writing. Yeah, life is busy, but I think the attitude to which you approach life and whatever you're doing is what makes the difference. Whatever it
Hmm.
is, you can live creatively and be in that space, of joy, because that comes from the heart. Right.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I think that's a good point, because it's really hard to tell someone who maybe is overworked, maybe has family issues they're dealing with, or any type of issue that is something that really kind of nags at you, and you're dealing with it daily. To
Hmm.
kind of just say, well, be in the flow, be creative, when they might not feel they have any time,
Yeah, I
for
understand that,
that.
but my greatest, for me, it happened at the most tumultuous time of my life. But
Hmm.
I think that the stronger your spiritual longing is, uh, the stronger um, grace or source or whatever that is shows up for you. Maybe in
Hmm.
meeting a person, or maybe even having a dream that it gives you the encouragement you need to get through this stage of your life or whatever's happening. You know, uh, yeah, I think that longing is very important, and to be connected to that, grace comes in and helps you. It's not going
Hmm.
to take care of your problems, but it'll give you some encouragement somehow, some way to keep moving forward. At least that's what happened
Right.
for me. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and I think our perspective can be something that at least keeps the door open a little bit when we are going through trying times,
Exactly.
or it also can shut us down, and then
Hmm.
we don't even notice
Wow.
the nudges that come in, or those, threads of connection that we're making. We don't recognize them.
We don't. No, we're bombarding.
Sometimes we don't until later,
Hmm.
but if you shut yourself off from it,
Hmm. Well, they say
you
it's
know.
either a breakthrough or a breakdown. and
Hmm.
and it's the truth when you say that it's in the hardest times that we grow and learn,
Hmm.
and to get through those hard times and keep the faith and keep moving forward. And there's a light that shines one way or another, that
Hmm.
helps you, through. It really, really does. Yeah. Chantal, if you're still listening, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's true. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you look at things that way and have gratitude for whatever it is and
Hmm.
ask for help, um, it's there, it's there.
I also think it's important because society in general, or even our families now, some people have families that are supportive of their artistic
Hmm.
gifts and endeavors. Um, and like you said, you explored from not being an artist, so it might be difficult for people, could be difficult for a family to suddenly say, yeah, quit doing what you're doing and go explore that. But I think, some of that has to come also from ourselves. Like we have to honor that and give ourselves permission to do that exploration, even if, you know, no one else
Hmm.
is there to support us. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you are on your own. You have to be your own resource, at least for a while.
For sure.
Um,
Hmm.
so I think that's very important. Chantel did respond, and she said, "Yes, Claudette, absolutely, the story of my life." So, uh,
Yeah, but and it's so true, and if you have enough passion and belief and that urge is in you, you will overcome whatever it is and do it. You
mhm,
really will, because even in my story, the way it unfolded, it was just by chance that I was running two drugstores at the time, and it was just by
mhm,
chance that we weren't able to open another one, and
mhm,
I because I was going to do it, and I was just going to try and keep doing my little art on the side, and it
mhm,
didn't happen, and that door opened for me to just go for it, and everything became better because of that. That through that hardest time, everything improved, everything became better. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened.
mhm.
Hmm.
Well, and I know you're saying yes, and the threads of connection started pretty early in your life. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit back to how you even ended up in the Bahamas. And you were talking about your, French degree in French literature. Even that, had a kind of interesting start. So you
Little
might
did I
share
know,
that.
yeah,
Hmm.
little did I know that I would actually use that degree. I guess it started from way back then. I was always, as a young child, I was always a little bit different. I always felt like I had one foot here and one foot somewhere else. I was one of those
Hmm.
kids, and the rest of my family not. So I was very different. And you go through adolescence, and you want to be like everybody else. You don't want to be different, and so you kind of do what everybody else is doing, and
Hmm.
that is not following the golden thread. But and I did that, and at that time, as you marry your high school sweetheart and you become a wife and a mother,
Hmm.
well, it happened. My high school sweetheart broke up with me, and I was left like, okay, what do I do now? I was first year university, and I happened to go to a magic show. And during the intermission, the fellow says, "Okay, I'm going to talk now about things that are not magic. For those of you who aren't interested, you can leave." I was there with my roommate. She says, "Well, I'm going to go." And I said, "No, I want to stay." I got that nudge, stay. And
Hmm.
it was very simple, and it was about Bible study, which I wasn't interested in. But he said one thing to me that changed my whole perspective. Because at that time, I was here and I was praying up to a God to please, please let him, whatever, asking
Hmm.
things like that. And he drew a circle on the board and he said, "You're in the circle, and so is God." And that just kind of shone this light that, and it just changed my perspective on things. It was one of those moments. And from that moment on, things evolved, and I met somebody where I was working. We made a trip to the Bahamas. The last thing I was looking for was to meet somebody because I had just broken up with somebody. And here walks in this fellow, and it was an instant recognition between him and I. And every when I went back home, of course, everyone said, "Oh, everybody falls in love on vacation." Da, da, da. 42 years later, I'm still with the same man, and I'm living in the Bahamas, and even the way we met here it was like it was inevitable that it was going to happen. Like
Hmm.
I didn't stay at the hotel I was supposed to stay at. Somehow I couldn't get up to the front of the line to register. They ran out of room. Friend and I were put into another hotel, and then that's where I met my future husband. It was like something that was meant to be against all odds.
Hmm.
And then I got here and they wanted me to teach French. So, hello, I had a degree in French literature. Never been in a classroom before, but I said, okay, I'll do it. So, that Monday I walked into and took over the whole French department of the high school here because their French teacher had gone home at Easter and hadn't returned. I had never been in a classroom before teaching French. And so I did it. And that's really been me. I've been thrown in the deep end with everything that I've done without really, then my husband had the idea to open up a discount drugstore. I said, sure, so quit teaching and opened up the drugstore and did that for 11 years. So that was very physical, difficult work. And
Hmm.
then at that midlife point to say, hold it, what is all this about? Things started falling apart, blah, blah, blah. That's when I got the nudge to start creating. And so,
Hmm.
my whole life, it's been very evident that there's been this golden thread and it's been showing up. It's grace sometimes, it can be described as grace. And I've always had that longing, and I met my spiritual tribe here in the Bahamas, one connection led to another, and I have a whole group of friends that are on that wavelength with me, and how I met
Hmm.
Chantal, my fellow artist. We came along in the art world together at the beginning because it's a different story, but we both started off together and showing together and etc. So, very,
Hmm.
very much alive, and it's still there, dangling there in front of me. I don't know where it's going to take me next, but
Hmm.
I'm ready and willing. Hmm.
I think it's so important that you pointed out, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to when you said, you've been thrown in the deep end a number of times. And I think for a lot of us, a transformation starts when something falls apart. And it can seem
Always.
like the worst point in your life.
Hmm.
Obviously something's ending, so something new is going to begin. And it can be a scary place to be in. But if you
Very.
learn to build that trust and give it a little bit of time, then you might find like, okay, this path is opening up, and
Yeah.
you discover something new, like you did with your
Yeah.
passion for art. So I
Hmm.
think that's an
Hmm.
important thing to point out.
That's my little dog
your,
out there.
your
Hold
dog.
on, I'm going to shut this door. Sorry about that. Yeah, when he doesn't see me, he starts wondering where I am. He's
He
no
sounded like a little, like a
Chihuahua. Yeah,
yeah,
Chihuahua.
a little
And
dog.
he's 15, so he's up there.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah, it's always darkest before the dawn.
hmm.
It's just the way it is. And those difficult times, if we see them as opportunities for growth, it's never easy to go through them, and we never want to, but
Hmm.
you know, they do lead to a brighter place if you have the faith and the trust and you take baby steps forward, you know.
Right. I
Yeah.
think that's another important point that you bring up, about it not always being easy, because I think, a lot of times if people are talking about spiritual um, awakenings, or following your heart, or living your soul purpose, or saying yes, to universal flow, it all sounds so good that you kind of expect, oh, well, that sounds like everything will be
Yeah.
easy. Like, why is it so difficult? And
Hmm.
yet, often it's just the opposite. And
Well,
that's where that trust and faith, comes in, that you're going to just you're going to trust it, you're going to go with the flow, and you're going to say yes to the
mm,
opportunities that are coming to you, even when they might not necessarily look like you expected them.
Exactly. The
you
path
know,
is
to
never usually straight. It's usually,
mhm,
just follow that and have faith and just go with it, and really um, the ultimate spiritual um, experience, I suppose, would be to be joyful in whatever is happening in your life,
mhm.
but that's a goal that is, it's difficult to achieve, but some do,
Some people do. It's always
mm-hmm,
admirable to see someone who is able to do that, and kind of amazing.
mm-hmm. And they're
You know,
usually the simplest people doing the simplest thing.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and of course, that's such a better way to be than resisting and struggling and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not
feeling
easy.
so unhappy about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you do your art or your writing, I'm thinking, about of course, the show is soul creativity. Uh, to me, that always means that spark within, that God spark within, and how you bring that forth, how you honor it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you feel, if that's how you would describe, what you do with your art and writing, and how important you feel creative self-expression is, and do you think it leads to coming from your heart and soul as a soul creative process.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that creativity is probably one of the most important things in life because it is the common language. It's what
Mhm.
unites us as people, no matter what religion, race, or creed, or whatever you are. You hear a beautiful piece of music, you see a beautiful painting, you see a beautiful stage production. All those boundaries dissolve. So creativity is where we meet as one.
Mhm.
And if we can express ourselves creatively, that's really bringing your special color, if you will, to the universal rainbow. It's
Mhm.
everything, and you can be creative in many many ways. We are creative beings, and our creative spark is our God spark. It is our connection because it's our connection to the creator. We are creators, and so it's
Mhm.
where we meet, and it's very very important. And I think my art has sprung from there for sure because it started with that spiritual longing, and it all
Mhm.
spilled out on my canvases originally. And at this point, I'm so inspired by nature because nature is a perfect metaphor for our existence. It's a perfect mirror, and one of the greatest lessons that nature teaches us, if you really observe it, is that nothing happens unless it happens for the greater good of the whole in nature.
Mhm.
Everything is connected, and we are part of that web, you know? And so, if I can translate that thought into work right now, I mean,
Mhm.
that's everything because somebody may get it, you know? Somebody may get it who hasn't gotten it before, that we're all connected. All these boundaries
Right.
between us are artificial.
Exactly. And I think of our creativity, and again, with a fairly broad definition, of creativity. So it doesn't necessarily have to be art or writing,
Hmm.
something that you think. I mean, it could be any number of things. But I feel like, that's a communication,
Hmm.
and it's a relationship. It's a relationship builder. It's a way to nurture relationships. And I think that, it adds beauty into our life. And it's a way to, it's kind of like a universal language, like through beauty and love, because most creative projects are, a work of love,
Hmm.
even though they may not always feel like it because they can be, really tough as well. Um,
Hmm.
so I really like to think of it as, as a means of relationship building.
Hmm.
And in that way, it takes down those barriers.
Yep.
Always being separate.
It does. Yeah,
Hmm.
it does. And that's the beauty of art. That's the beauty of
Yeah.
it.
Um, I also wanted to um, ask you about the self-expression, part. How do you feel like if we don't use our creative self-expression, I've heard people talk about how they feel if we don't use it in a way, we're almost harming ourselves, can lead to depression or some type of unhappiness, or have
Mm-hmm.
you seeking that same release in some other way. And now that you are painting and writing, do you feel that, like, if you're away from it for a while, do you feel drawn back to it in that particular way, like you really need to express yourself?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, I definitely need to do something creative for sure
Hmm.
because I've had a taste of it. And it's definitely therapy. It's definitely healing. It's definitely a mirror, at least
Hmm.
for me. It's everything. It's everything, whether I'm writing or painting or performing, doing a performance art or
Hmm.
whatever it is. It's a healing tool, and it's something. It's a necessity. It's a
Right.
necessity. So many people are not are not using it, and
Hmm.
I'd rather make a positive statement in that those who are using it are they're healing themselves really.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah,
And hopefully, and others, I'm
and
sure,
others. Oh yeah,
through their work, if it
definitely. Yeah, that's
whoever connects with it.
yeah, we
Hmm.
inspire. We hope to inspire, educate, challenge, create debate.
Hmm.
All of that. That's what art does.
Right, and motivate.
Motivate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Definitely.
there's a lot of magic, certainly a lot of magic in art, and a lot of possibilities that, come from interacting with it.
Mm-hmm.
We are wrapping up the half hour, Claudette, but I wanted to give you a chance, even though your website is posted below the video, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe you can let people know what it is so that they can view some of your art and
Mm-hmm.
some of your other work.
It's simple. It's claudettedean.com, and it's pretty broad based. It has my art. It has my writing. You can order my book or the two books that I have straight from there. I have a YouTube channel. It's Claudette Dean. I also I'm on Instagram and Facebook. But my website, claudettedean.com, you'll find everything you need to know.
Guide you from there, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us, Claudette. Everything you had to say was so interesting and inspiring, and I hope you'll come back to join us
Hmm.
in the future. We can continue our conversation.
I would love to. Thank you again for having me on.
Well, it was my pleasure. And I want to mention to our viewers that next week, Jenny Lincoln will be with me on next Thursday. And she has a human navigation project that we're going to talk about a little bit that's really quite interesting. And she's also a fountain of inspiration and knowledge. So hopefully everyone will tune back in to listen to her next week. So again, thank you, Claudette. Thanks everyone who is joining in and for the comments. And I will see you next week. Bye.
Mhm.